Welcome back to today's explainer. Okay, tell me if you've ever felt this, that visceral, completely disorienting vertigo of being mapped perfectly by another person. You know the feeling, right? When someone just navigates your emotional landscape with absolute fluency, they hit every single note, and they see your vulnerabilities before you even realize they're there. Honestly, it can absolutely shake you to your core. So today, we're going to reverse engineer that exact feeling. We're cracking open the black box of those intensely deep romantic dynamics to figure out what's really going on under the hood when a relationship feels, well, almost too perfect to be real.
To really set the stage for this, think about this quote from Stephen Chbosky: "We accept the love we think we deserve." Now that sets a pretty profound philosophical tone for everything we're looking at today, because it highlights a really hard reality. Our deepest insecurities, our past traumas, those hidden internal blueprints, they often dictate the exact emotional choreography we're willing to accept from someone else. When someone steps into our life and perfectly fits that blueprint, man, our brains just light up. But we have to ask, is it destiny or is it designed?
And that brings us to the absolute core tension of our explainer today. Was it love, or did she play me perfectly? This is the ultimate question, isn't it? It's the one that creates such incredibly loud, painful cognitive dissonance in our heads after an intense relationship ends. We're going to tackle this tension head-on, unpack the psychological mechanics behind it, and show you exactly why trying to answer this question usually just leaves you spinning in circles.
Let's dive right into Section 1, the anatomy of precision and dismantling the false dichotomy.
See, we usually assume that if a relationship is calculated, well, it can't be true love, right? But actually, scratch that. That is a total false dichotomy. Enter the intuitive operative. This kind of emotional mastery, it's rarely just cold corporate sociopathy right out of the gate. Not at all. Instead, it's usually born out of their own hypervigilance, maybe abandonment trauma, or just deep-seated insecurity. This person can feel an intense, completely authentic attachment to you while simultaneously using every psychological tool in their kit to manage and defend against you. They felt you deeply because they knew how to decode you, and they decoded you because doing that is literally their primary survival mechanism for maintaining control. When you're met with that kind of mirror image precision, where every single doubt you have is preemptively soothed and every desire is accurately mapped, it feels like absolute destiny, no question. But what feels like this profound union is often just an exquisite feedback loop. You emit these frequencies of need or insecurity or longing, and the other person simply tunes their emotional dial to match your exact station. It creates a closed circuit, a loop where they are loving you the only way their own internal architecture permits, transactionally, strategically, and defensively. Moving on to Section 2, Deconstructing the Perfect Line. Let's look at a psychological case study. To see exactly how this emotional engineering functions in real life, I want you to picture this. Your guard is completely down, you're in the dark, in the most physically defenseless posture imaginable, spooning. And you hear this. Do you think our bodies fit together perfectly because God made us for each other? Now, was that just a line, or was it a completely unique, spontaneous sentiment? The source material frames this as an absolute masterclass in emotional synchronization, and we are going to break down exactly why it works so flawlessly.
Let's look at how this rhetoric is mechanically built. It basically operates in 3 highly calculated steps. Step 1, it references physical geometry, just the simple, undeniable sensory experience of 2 bodies fitting together. Step 2, it takes that physical reality and attaches it to a massive existential claim of cosmic destiny. God made us for each other. And then step 3, it uses the extreme vulnerability of that posture, the skin-to-skin contact, the guards being totally lowered in the dark, to completely bypass your analytical cortex. It literally lands the message directly in your emotional center before your brain can even begin to process it. Now, to understand why a moment like this feels so incredibly real, we have to contrast the actual script with the delivery. The script itself? It's actually just a classic, prepackaged cultural idiom. I mean, connecting physical geometry to divine destiny is one of the oldest tropes in romance movies. We've all seen it. But the delivery is what makes it deeply contextual. When it's spoken breathlessly and spontaneously in the dark, it feels entirely singular to you. People reach for these grand romantic idioms not because they're reading from a clipboard, but because the prepackaged script just feels larger and truer than anything they could invent on the fly to make a temporary connection feel permanent. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive paradox in human psychology. On the one hand, a line like this feels like a total revealing surrender. It feels like this raw peek behind the curtain of our soul, where she's exposing her deepest romantic faith to you. It kind of obligates you to believe her. But on the other hand, it actually functions as a profound defensive shield. By invoking God and fate, she shifts the focus completely away from the messy, high-risk work of actual, sustained emotional intimacy. Think about it. Fate requires no maintenance. It just is.
Which leads us to a really devastating realization. Relationships built on cosmic necessity often implode violently because reality simply cannot sustain divine architecture. This is an absolutely crucial point to understand. When someone hands you a narrative this grand, telling you that you are divinely engineered for one another, they are simultaneously setting the baseline for the exit. Reality is never going to live up to that divine standard, which means the grandiosity itself actually paves the way for the relationship's eventual collapse.
All right, section 3, the core dilemma and the calculus of significance. So, we've analyzed the psychological tactics, we've looked at the past data, but now we really have to pivot to what this actually means for you and your life moving forward. We have to ask the big question, does it matter? If her intent was this tangled web of genuine affection mixed with calculated defense mechanisms, does it actually matter? Let's just let the weight of that theoretical purity hang in the air for a second.
From a purely analytical standpoint, it matters immensely for your future, but it changes absolutely nothing about the past. Look, if the grief, the elation, and the visceral impact on your nervous system were completely real to you as you lived them, then the purity of her internal motivation is kind of just academic. You experience the euphoria and the damage and high fidelity. The end state for you, that profound disorientation, is identical regardless of what her intent was. But it ultimately does matter, because how you answer this question dictates the exact lens you're going to use to protect yourself going forward.
Let's walk through your two main options here. First, if you decide it was just pure love, well, you risk doubting your own sanity and you end up excusing massive boundary violations under the banner of human complexity. Not great. But if you accept that she played you intuitively, you actually do something incredibly empowering. You stop trying to read her mind and you finally accept the structural reality. You were in an asymmetrical relationship where your emotional responses were being managed rather than truly met. And that brings us to section 4, the final diagnosis after the lights come on. You know, interrogating the past is rarely a genuine quest for objective truth. Usually, it's just your analytical mind trying to make sense of the scars left behind by a performance that ultimately required your subjugation. So here's the real takeaway. The true data point is not the poetry, it's the structural integrity when the lights come back on. Whether that script was rehearsed for weeks or she felt it vibrating in her chest in real time, it matters very little. The poetry in the dark, that's easy. So ask yourself this, when the romantic words faded and the lights finally came on, what was actually left holding the relationship together? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this helps you decode your own realities. See you next time.